If you have ever hiked alone in the mountains, you know how quickly silence can start feeling wrong. The Appalachian Trail stretches for thousands of miles through forests, valleys, and isolated mountain towns. During the day, it feels peaceful. But at night, those same woods feel endless. And once you are deep enough into the trail, there is nobody coming to help you. What happened to me out there still keeps me awake years later, because I never actually saw the man clearly. But I know he followed me for 3 nights. And I know he wanted me alone. My name is Ethan, and this happened in October of 2021. I had just turned 26 and decided I needed a break from work. I'd spent almost 3 years sitting in a cramped apartment doing remote IT support after COVID hit. Every day felt the same. Wake up, answer tickets, sleep, repeat. So I planned a solo hiking trip through part of the Appalachian Trail in western North Carolina. Nothing extreme. Just 5 days alone with my backpack, some camera gear, and enough food to last the week. I'd hiked before, but never completely alone for multiple nights. At first, it felt amazing. The mountains were beautiful. Cold air. Orange leaves everywhere. The kind of quiet that makes your brain finally slow down. The first day was normal. I passed a few hikers here and there. Most people were friendly. Everyone gives that little nod when they pass you on the trail. By evening, I reached a small shelter area near the ridge. There were already 2 other hikers there. A married couple in their 40s. We talked for maybe 20 minutes while cooking food over tiny camping stoves. Nothing weird happened. Nothing at all. But the next morning, I noticed someone standing far down the trail watching our shelter. At first I thought it was another hiker waiting to pass through. He wore a dark jacket and carried a large backpack. But something about him felt strange. He wasn't moving. Just standing there between the trees. Watching. I remember the wife noticing him too. She quietly asked her husband, "Has that guy been there long?" He looked over and shrugged. The man eventually walked away deeper into the woods before any of us spoke to him. I didn't think much about it then. The Appalachian Trail is full of people. Some are friendly. Some are weird. That's just how it is. Around noon, the married couple split off toward a different trail junction, and suddenly I was alone. The forest felt different after that. Too quiet. No voices. No footsteps except mine. That evening I found another campsite area beside a creek. No shelters this time. Just scattered flat ground where hikers usually pitch tents. There was only one other tent already there. An older guy around 60. Gray beard. Quiet. He barely talked except to mention rain was expected overnight. I set my tent maybe 30 yards away from him and spent the next hour eating ramen while listening to water run through the creek. It got dark fast. The mountains swallow light early. By 9 o'clock everything outside my tent was pitch black. No moon. No stars. Just trees. At some point during the night, I woke up to footsteps. Crunch. Crunch. Slow footsteps moving through leaves. At first I assumed it was the older hiker getting up to pee. But the footsteps kept circling. Slowly. Around my tent. I froze inside my sleeping bag. The sound stopped directly beside my head. I could hear breathing outside. Heavy breathing. Then silence. I grabbed my flashlight and turned it on instantly. The light illuminated the walls of my tent. But nobody was there. The footsteps stopped completely. I waited almost 10 minutes before unzipping the tent slightly. The campsite looked empty. The older man's tent was still there. No movement. No sound. I convinced myself I imagined it. Maybe an animal. maybe exhaustion. So eventually I went back to sleep. The next morning, the older hiker was already packing up. I casually asked if he'd been walking around during the night. He stopped what he was doing and looked at me strangely. "No," he said. Then he added something that made my stomach tighten. "But I heard it too." I asked what he meant. He hesitated before speaking quietly. "Someone walked through camp around 2 in the morning." My chest felt cold instantly. I asked if he saw anyone. He shook his head. "No flashlight. No talking. Just footsteps." Then he left. Just like that. No goodbye. Nothing. I stood there alone beside the creek, suddenly wishing I'd never come. But I didn't want fear ruining my trip. So I kept hiking. For most of the day, things felt normal again. Bird sounds returned. Wind moved through the trees. I even started recording videos for my channel. By late afternoon, I reached a fire tower area overlooking the mountains. That's when I saw him again. The same man from the first shelter. Dark jacket. Large backpack. Standing near the tree line. Watching me. This time I got a better look. Tall. Thin. Maybe late 40s. Scruffy beard. His face looked off somehow. Like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. I gave a quick nod, trying to seem friendly. He didn't nod back. Didn't smile. Didn't speak. Just stared. I immediately felt exposed up there. The fire tower area was isolated with no other hikers nearby. So I decided not to stay there overnight. As I packed my bag, I noticed something horrifying. The man started walking too. Not toward the trail ahead. Toward me. Slowly. I pretended not to notice and hurried down the path. At first I couldn't hear anything except my own breathing. Then, crunch. Footsteps behind me. I looked back. The man was maybe 70 yards away. Still walking. Same pace. Not trying to hide. Just following. My heartbeat exploded. I sped up. He sped up too. Not running. Just matching me. That's when survival instinct kicked in. I left the main trail and cut downhill through trees, hoping to lose him. Branches smacked my face as I moved fast through the woods. I finally stopped near a fallen tree and listened. Silence. For almost 30 seconds I thought I'd escape him. Then I heard it again. Crunch. Closer this time. He'd followed me off trail. I remember pure panic flooding my body. Not movie panic. Real panic. The kind that makes your hands shake uncontrollably. I ran downhill until I reached another trail crossing where thankfully 2 younger hikers appeared. The second they saw me, they knew something was wrong. I looked behind me. The man was gone. Completely gone. I asked the hikers if they'd seen anyone behind me. Both said no. That night I stayed near them at a crowded campsite. I barely slept. Every tiny sound outside made my stomach twist. At one point around midnight, I heard distant footsteps again. Slow. Circling the camp perimeter. Nobody else seemed awake. I wanted to unzip the tent and look, but I couldn't force myself to do it. Morning finally came. I should have left the trail right then. I know that now. But part of me still wanted to believe I was overreacting. Maybe the guy was just socially awkward. Maybe I was paranoid from being alone too long. So I kept hiking. Worst mistake of my life. 4th day started raining heavily. Cold rain. The kind that soaks everything. By evening, fog rolled through the mountains, making visibility terrible. I found an old emergency shelter near a steep ridge and decided to stay there overnight. The place was empty. Just wooden walls covered in graffiti and carved initials from hikers over the years. I hated being alone again. The rain got worse after dark. Wind hammered the shelter walls hard enough to shake them. Around 10 o'clock, I heard footsteps outside. Not hiking footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps. Circling the shelter. My blood ran cold instantly. Then came scratching. Very light scratching against the wooden wall. I stayed completely still. The scratching moved slowly around the shelter exterior, then stopped near the doorway. I stared at the dark entrance, unable to breathe. A silhouette appeared outside. Tall. Motionless. Watching me from the rain. I grabbed my flashlight and pointed it directly at him. It was the same man. His clothes were soaked. Rain dripped from his beard. And he was smiling. Not a normal smile either. This horrible empty grin. I yelled, "Can I help you?" He didn't answer. Just stood there. Then he slowly stepped inside the shelter. I backed up, immediately gripping the flashlight like a weapon. The man looked around before speaking for the first time. "You shouldn't hike alone out here." His voice sounded calm. Too calm. I forced myself to respond casually. "Yeah, probably not." He stared at me for several seconds without blinking. Then he asked, "Where you headed tomorrow?" Every instinct in my body screamed not to answer. So I lied. Sawmill parking lot. Meeting friends. The smile disappeared immediately. For the first time his expression looked angry. Like I'd ruined something. Then he quietly sat near the doorway without saying another word. For nearly 2 hours. We stayed in silence while rain pounded outside. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't relax. Every time I glanced toward him, he was already staring at me. At some point after midnight, he suddenly stood up. Then he walked outside into the storm. I waited maybe 10 minutes before grabbing my backpack and leaving through the opposite side of the shelter. I didn't care about the rain anymore. I just wanted out. The trail was almost invisible in the fog. My flashlight barely helped. I kept slipping on wet rocks while hiking downhill in darkness. But I didn't stop moving. Then, behind me, I heard running. Fast footsteps crashing through leaves. Coming directly toward me. I turned the flashlight around and briefly saw him between the trees. Running at me. That image still haunts me. His face looked insane. Wild eyes. Mouth hanging open. I sprinted harder than I ever have in my life. Branches tore at my jacket. I nearly fell multiple times. The footsteps behind me kept getting closer. Then suddenly, I saw lights. A road. Small parking lot near a ranger station. I screamed for help while running toward it. Footsteps behind me stopped instantly. When I looked back, forest was empty again. No movement. No sound. Nothing. Park ranger eventually came outside after hearing me yelling. I told him everything. At first he looked skeptical. Until another ranger came over and quietly asked me to describe the man. When I did, both of them exchanged a look. That terrified me more than anything else. Apparently, multiple hikers had reported a strange man stalking campsites in that area over the previous year. Always alone hikers. Always at night. Nobody knew who he was. And nobody had officially caught him doing anything criminal. So they couldn't arrest him. One ranger drove me to a nearby motel that night because I refused to go back into the woods. The next morning, I checked online forums for Appalachian hikers. That's when I found several posts describing the exact same man. Dark jacket. Silent behavior. Watching campsites. Following solo hikers. One post from months earlier mentioned hearing footsteps circling their tent all night. Another claimed food went missing while they slept. And one post still chills me. A hiker wrote that he woke up during the night and found a man standing inches away from his tent watching him sleep. No flashlight. No sound. Just staring. The description matched perfectly. I never hike the Appalachian Trail alone again. Honestly. I barely hike at all anymore. People think the scariest thing in deep wilderness is bears. Or getting lost. But after what happened to me, I learned something worse hides out there. Because animals kill for survival. People like that man. They hunt for completely different reasons. And somewhere deep in those mountains, I know he's probably still out there, waiting for another solo hiker to make the mistake of camping alone.